In the previous lecture, you understand how inheritance work, how you can handle different exceptions, and how you can work with method overloading. In the previous lecture, we understand how constructor and inheritance work. Now, as you know, constructor is a way to initialize a class attributes while creating an object. We initialize constructor with init method. You already know that. Once you understand all about inheritance, the constructor, and the classes, let me show you what is this super method is and where you can use this super method using inheritance. So in this lecture, we're going to talk about what is super method and how you can use it. So let me show you a very simple example first, and then we'll talk about what is this super method. So here I'm going to simply start with the class keyword to create a class, and then I'm going to specify a name for this class, known. And then I'm going to specify colon here. Using define, I'm going to call constructor. So here I'm going to call init, and in this init, I'm going to say self.name. I'm going to create class instance name, and then I'm going to specify value to it. So here I'm going to say daily. If you want to get the value from the user, you can pass parameter here. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just create a simple variable and specify hard-coded value here. Down here, I'm going to just define another method and specify name show. And this method is going to print this name variable. So here I'm going to say print self.name. Now, just like that, down here, I'm going to create another class. I'm going to start with the class keyword and then specify name used. And then I'm going to inherit this known class. So I'm going to just use this name in this parenthesis to inherit this class. Then I'm going to define constructor. So here I'm going to call init method, and then I'm going to call self.val is equal to tuition. And just for that, I'm going to call this show method here as well. So here I'm going to say define show, and then I'm going to print self.val, just like this. Let me just simply create an instance of these classes. So here I'm going to say k is equal to known and u is equal to used. So once I have the instance of both these classes, let me first call these methods. So here I'm going to say k.show and u.show. So I'm going to call both this method one by one using an instance of these classes. Now let me execute this file. When I execute this file, I'm going to have daily tuition as a result. So this method is going to return this daily value, and this statement is going to return this tuition value. That's super easy, right? We already learned that in the previous lectures. Now what if I try to access this name instance of the superclass using the instance of this derived class? Let me show you what happens if I try to access this name instance using use class instance. I'm going to say here print and then say u.name. Now let me just execute this file and show you the result. When I execute this file, you can notice I'm going to have an error message. This is going to return this error message because I don't have this attribute in this use class. You can notice I can access the method using this derived class very easily. But what happened with this class instance? When I try to access it, I'm going to get an error message. This is because when I try to access this attribute, this instance is going to call this constructor. And in this constructor, we don't have this name attribute. If I want to access this name attribute, I need to call the constructor of the superclass as well in this inherited class. Now to do that, I'm going to just simply call the constructor of this superclass. So in this used class down here, I'm going to just simply say known. I'm going to call the class name dot, then specify init method, and here I'm going to pass my self keyword. So now I can access this name instance using self keyword very easily. So now this name instance can be accessible using this use class. When I execute this file, you can notice I'm going to have daily as a result. We call the constructor in the child class with a self keyword. You can consider this as a self keyword, pass the superclass and take the permission to access the superclass attribute. So whenever you want to access any attribute of the superclass, you need to first take the permission from the superclass. When you retrieve a method from an instance, the self argument of the method is automatically bound to the instance. Such a method is called unbound. By supplying the current instance as a self argument to the unbound method, the use class gets the full treatment from the superclass's constructor. But calling superclass's constructor using an unbound method is too old now. There is a newer way to do it using super function. So let me show you how we can use this super function to get the permission from the superclass to access class instance. So here, instead of calling the name of this class I can simply call here super method, just like this. I'm going to just call a method super, then specify dot, and then call a constructor of the super class, and I'm going to just get rid of this self keyword because this super don't need this self keyword. Now when I execute this file, I'm going to have the same result. You don't have to specify self keyword because this super method is going to easily give us the access of the super class instance. This super method is going to get the super class name automatically. You don't have to specify it. The super class is called with the current class and instance as its arguments, and any method you call on the returned object will be fetched from the super class rather than the current class. So when you create an instance of this use class, it's going to call this init constructor and call the super class constructor using this statement and initialize this class attribute and give the access to use this instance. So basically, if you want to access the class attribute or class instance of the super class, you need to first call the super method with the constructor. Once you call it, you have a permission to access the class attribute and class instance of the super class. So once you have the access of it, you can easily access it using the instance of the derived class. So I hope you understand how easy it is to use this super method. In the next lecture, we're going to talk about static method and class method. Practice with this code to completely understand how super method work in Python. Till then, I will see you in the next one.